Getting the kick drum and bass guitar gluing together is one of the most challenging things to do whilst producing a track. The problem is that the bass and the kick drum compete for the same space across the frequency spectrum, meaning that quite easily one can be clouded by the other and neither can punch through effectively. But there's actually quite a straightforward way to fix this. What you've got to do is EQ out space so that where one pokes through more, the other one dips. By making a boost on the bass at the same frequency where you're making a cut on the kick drum, and also by cutting the kick at the same space you're making a boost on the bass, what you're doing is creating space for both to exist around each other. Each of them gets to be the big fish in a particular area so that they're not encroaching on each other. And this makes both of them more audible to the human ear. In a way, it's kind of like managing two big egos in the same workspace by making sure that they're both big features on separate projects instead of occupying the same space. I'm going to show you a step-by-step formula how to do this. Firstly, you need to find the fundamental frequency of the root note for the bass. If you don't know how to do this, find out the key of the song and find out the frequency of this note in the second octave. And there are plenty of charts you can find online to tell you this. So if we were in G major, it would be 98 Hertz. But if you want to simplify things, another thing you can do is pull up a parametric EQ plugin like FabFilter Pro Q, and this will show you visually where the highest level of low frequency energy is. So you see where the low frequency energy on the bass is most dense, and this would probably be a sensible place to boost. The next thing you need to do is the exact same for the kick drum. Find the fundamental frequency. Remember that in most conventional instrument-based genres, the fundamental frequency for the kick is going to be slightly lower than the bass, normally floating somewhere between 50 and 90 Hertz. And again, you can find out pretty easily where to make a boost on the kick drum just by pulling up a parametric EQ and seeing where most of the low-end energy is. Make a note of both of these frequencies, both for the bass guitar and for the kick. Now here's where it gets interesting. Pull up a parametric EQ on both the bass and the kick drum track, and where you make a boost on one, you're going to need to make a cut on the other. So in this instance, we're giving the bass a boost at about 90, and we're creating a notch in the bass at about 60, because this is where the kick drum's going to live. And then on the kick drum track, we also pull up an EQ and do the exact opposite. We make a boost at 60, and we make a cut at 90. This technique may seem subtle, but if done properly, it can drastically improve the clarity of the low end in your track. As an extra tip, for the absolute best results, I would suggest investing in a plugin called Surfer EQ. And the principle of using it is exactly the same, but the reason it works even better is because this plugin can move the boosted frequencies of the bass as the bass line moves across the song. Remember, a bass line isn't going to stay on the same note the whole time, it's going to change with the chords. And as the notes that are being played change, you'll also want the boosted frequency to change to reflect the notes that are being played out. Without this, a static EQ can make it sound pretty overbearing on certain notes and then lacking on others. Surfer EQ fixes that problem. So what you do is you switch on the surf function and set the EQ to detect the second harmonic frequencies, and it will naturally follow the bass line. It's pretty cool. And what's even cooler is that you can create the same reciprocal cuts on the kick drum. What you got to do here is pull up an instance of Surfer EQ on your kick drum and sidechain the audio from the bass into it. And then the only thing you need to change with the surf function is that it's cutting, not boosting. The EQ on the kick drum is now responding to the bass guitar and making a cut in the frequencies so that the bass guitar has more space to thrive. The kick will be notched exactly where the bass is boosted, following a specific inverse pattern. Both techniques work well. If you want simplicity, just go for the first technique I showed you. But if you really want your bass line to shine through, then using a plugin like Surfer EQ and moving the boosted frequency range on the bass and moving the cut frequency range on the kick drum will definitely give you an edge. And it's especially useful when you're at that point where you're 90% there, but you need that final push to get it from a good amateur mix to a professional mix that you can be proud of.